Yes, but louder. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad you're here, especially after last night. We appreciate you coming to that and this. My name is Jason Gorfine. I'm here to introduce these fantastic people. I'm a staff user experience designer here at Tableau, and if there's something you don't like, I didn't design it. Now, here we have today for, I think, about 100 tips, if we can get through them, although I hear the max is 86, and that they are going to beat your record badly.
We're going to crush it.
Yeah. Awesome. See, yeah, that. Lorna is the only Lorna here out of 20,000 people, and that's just the very definition of an outlier. And I'm going to make up a fact. You invented cat emojis, Ann. And with that, are you ready for 100 tips?
Thanks. All right, so quick takeaway. Don't bother taking any notes. If you want to pull your phone out right now and take a picture, that's the only thing you need. We're going to post our solutions after this, so take a picture and then get prepared. So our goal today is, can we hit 100 tips? Lorna, will you give us a little bit of history?
Yeah, sure. So Andy and Jeff have done this session for the past 2 years. The maximum amount of tips that they ever reached was 86. So in 50 minutes, yes, okay. As a team, we're going to try and beat that, but then we also have like a little bit of competition between us. Let's hope that whoever wins is great. But yeah, if you think you see a tip, shout, cheer. The scorekeepers will count that.
Yep.
We're trying not to do minus tips because we want to beat them too. So yeah, are we ready?
I think we're ready. You ready?
Go.
Boom. Boom.
Okay, so first off, I'm going to start in Tableau Prep. So drag and drop data sources. So if you highlight your data sources, you can drag and drop them into Tableau Prep, which allows them. So what else you can do is use Data Interpreter, which is the same as Tableau Desktop, so you can switch that on and it'll clean up your data just a little bit more. If you double-click on your sheet name, you can rename it to whatever you want. So I'm just not going to practice typing. You can also double-click on your description and type whatever you want, so you can give the people a little bit more information on that. So if I try and join my employee data to my services, you'll see that there's a little error in this top right-hand corner, which tells you where the places are for your errors. So you can go to this error and can see there's no join clause, but I don't really want that one, so we'll remove that. So if I join them back up, you'll see that there's no join clause here. That's because we have one uppercase, one lowercase. So when I go into here and insert a step, we can change this to uppercase. So clean, make uppercase, and now when you go into it, you'll be able to see that they're joining really nicely. You can also change what join you're doing, whether you want to do a left, inner, outer, whatever. I also noticed in my data set that we have 2 spelling types of a different shop. So if I just scroll across here, you'll see that one is Fuzzy Wuzzy and the other one is Fuzzy Wuzzies. The thing that we can do here is we can group and replace by a spelling. So if I do that, you'll be able to see that the spelling has disappeared, so it then groups it together. Say if you want to future-proof your data, you can also add a new data. So when you rerun your workflow and you know that there's a new shop coming, you can add that in, and it'll automatically put that into your data for the next time you run your data source. When we're looking at location data, we can also change the type of data that we're looking at. So if I change this to a city, because I know that that's a city data, you'll see that there's an error there, so that I can go back and change those data rows to be cities rather than states. Over to you, Anne.
Woo! All right, here are my prep tips. So the first one is you have your data profile section. So when you click on an ellipse, either in numeric or data, you can actually toggle between summary and detail. Summary will show you these different bins. If you switch to detail, it'll show you every member. Again, that works for dates and for numbers. My next tip is, let's say you want to aggregate your data. You want to filter out some things. So I have created an aggregation and found the minimum order date for my customers. I want to filter that out. So I'm actually just going to use a join to filter that out. So I'm joining my data back on itself, and right here on the left, you can see this secondary join clause where it says not equal to. So a great, easy way to filter out your data using a join clause. All right, my next tip. So you can actually filter. So you can always filter from up here by clicking things, but you can also filter down at the bottom as well. So if I want to exclude Fort Worth as a city, I can right-click, exclude, and it will filter there as well. You can also rearrange fields 2 ways, shockingly. So you can drag them across the top here, potentially, if I can get my mouse to work, yeah, and you can get them to move, or you can do it down below as well. All right. And Lorna stole this one from me, but I'm an uppercase snob, so I love to uppercase everything. So not to make my data join together, but just because I like it to look pretty, you can go in, go to clean values, and make everything uppercase. Back to you, Lorna.
Okay, so now we're switching back over to desktop. So notice how I have American dates. I might want to start working with an English client, because obviously that's where I'm from. So you can go to File, Workbook Locale, and you can change the locale to be English, United Kingdom, and then it should change these dates over to English. So then we have English dates rather than American dates. If you're working on a shared drive, you have your Tableau repository stored in a certain place, so you have shapes, colors, preferences, all sorts of things. You can change your repository location by going into File, Repository Location, and you can change where that is stored, so you can find shared things on there. If you right-click on any particular field and go Describe, you can then load a subset of data, which will then show you what's in that, and it will give you a little bit more information of those. If we, again, right-click on a data source and go to Default Properties and comment, if I just type some random rubbish in there, and then I hover back over that field, you'll be able to see that it's there, so you'll be able to give some more information to your people that are going on that. Captions. Captions are great. If you've not noticed at the bottom of mine, I'm giving myself some little hints and tips, but what we can do is it will describe the worksheet. So if you go to Worksheet, Show Caption, it will then describe what's in that worksheet. So it will describe what's in that worksheet down there. And then, so editing aliases. So there's different ways that we can connect to data sources. If you click this little add button at the top, it'll add a data connection rather than a data source. So this will allow you to join fields. Whereas if you go to data, new data source, it'll allow you to blend fields rather than join. So they're the two differences. So then, if you want to edit the primary aliases, you have to make sure that we have two fields that are linking, and then we have the ID and the product from the secondary data source. If you click on the secondary data source pill and edit primary aliases, and then click OK, it will automatically then revert them to the primary data source, and we can remove any secondary fields. Over to you, Anne.
All right, I'm going to show you how to make an easy word cloud. So first tip, Control-M will get you a brand new sheet. I'm going to go ahead and find my trusty subcategory and drag it onto text. Make sure your mark type stays on text. Then let's drag out our trusty sales, put it on size, drop it on color. You get a nice word cloud, but one thing I also like to do is I like to, let me put this on size as well. I like to square my sales, and that makes the size pop even more, so it's really easy to see where you have more data. My next tip is two different ways to rename the fields that are your measures. So you can bring on measure names to the row shelf and drop all your measure values onto text. You can start right-clicking and editing the alias, or you can clear it. You can also do this instead. On the left in the data pane, you can go down to measure names. You can right-click. You can edit your aliases. You'll see all your aliases, and you can clear them from there. My next tip is one I get asked about way too many times, because you should all know this. If you have a filter for a dimension and you want to get rid of that pesky all, just go to this little drop down here, go to Customize, and uncheck Show All Value. My next one is the random function. So if you're using a Tableau extract, you can use this function here called random, just open, close parentheses, and that will generate a random number between 0 and 1. It will requery every time you requery your data set. So notice as I switch my filters, it'll start changing the number. This is great for anonymizing your data and making it more of a random sample. Okay. My next tip is perfect color intensity. So I love the rainbow, so do you, but this might be a little bit too bright, so a great way to adjust that, I like to go in, drop my opacity, and then I go into my color picker. I'll edit those colors, so I'm just going to pick this lighter red. We'll pick one more. I'll pick the lighter orange as well. And then all I need to do is drop my opacity back up to 100%, and now those colors aren't so gnarly. All right, my next one. I know you've all run into this issue. So you start drilling into a date, you keep going, and it starts to get really, really ugly. So what I like to do instead is build custom date hierarchies. To do this, you're going to right-click on your date. You're going to create a custom date. Let's do year and month. So I'm going to select year first, and then I'm going to create another one. Same process. Right-click, create custom date. This time I'm selecting month from down here. I'm going to put a 2 next to it because I already have one. 2 more things here. I'm just going to find them here. I'm control-clicking, right-clicking. I'm going to make them discrete. I'm going to drag my months on top of years to make my ad hoc hierarchy. And we're almost done. Just drop on top. And now when I drill through, I only go from year to month. There's no days, there's no weeks, there's no quarters. Back to you, Lorna.
So my next section is on formatting. So ever wondered why those pesky grid lines are always there? So annoying. From 10 point,
Get them out of there.
From 10.4, 10.5, you can remove all your grid lines from all over your workbook, which means, actually, if I make sure they click off, come on, and then you can also change some other lines. So you can remove your 0 lines, and axis ticks, so you can make sure that they're all removed. Color tabs filtering. If you've not noticed, across the bottom, I've got different colors. This isn't just to make it look pretty. So if we click on your little filter at the top and we go to selected worksheets, you can see that those are being brought across. So you can be able to use your sheets as filtering, so it makes it a lot easier when you're trying to filter. Custom color drag now. I'm using a Mac and using a Windows. This is much more better on a Windows, so if you go to a specific color, you can drag and drop your color onto your custom colors rather than clicking add to custom colors. Then we all have color palettes and you want to stay on brand, but if you're using a single measure, you can't use your custom color palettes. Well, that's a lie. If you create a dummy field and just in field calculations, come on, no?
Yeah.
Woo! And then you drag that to color, you can then go into edit colors and you've got all of your color palettes in there, so therefore that means that you can stay on brand and give your custom color palettes. Next, we have conditional formatting. So if you look at my tooltip, you can see that above is in blue and below is in orange. And how do we do that? So the first thing that we do is we create a calculated field, which is a level of detail calculation, where it's you want to look at the sum of sales subcategory, and then you want the average of those over each of the different categories, which then gives you that reference line. Zoom, yeah, yeah, Zoom.
They're trying to give you more tips. Stop helping her.
Fine. And then what we want to do is we want to create a calculated field to look at the sum of sales over the level of detail calculation, then do above and below. And then we just want to separate those out. So we've got an above calculation and a below calculation. I hold Command then to highlight both of them. On a Mac, it's Control on a Windows. So then if we drag that to detail, and then we go into Tooltip, then what we can do here is we can add above, and then add below, and then I will highlight the above and change that to blue, and highlight the below and change that to orange. So now when I hover over, you'll be able to see that above is blue and below is orange. Split color legends. So let's say we have measure values on colors. You can see that the quantity is just gray because it's so low. So if we click on the measure values, you can use separate color legends, which then gives you a separate color per legend. Dynamic color legend. So when we do sheet swapping using a parameter, you can see that this profit legend is not changing and it's going to null. We don't want that. So the thing that we want to do here is create a dummy worksheet with the color on the color, obviously. And then when I go in and if I drag this, if I press shift, I'll be able to float it, and if I unshift, then you'll be able to tile it. So it depends on what you want to do. You can show the color legend here. And as you can see there, it's transparent. Yay, transparent color legends. Highlight, put it over there, and if we make this super small so we can't see it, so it's kind of like hiding it, you can then see when I flick through, you'll be able to see that it's always there. Where's it gone? Oh, it is there. It's fine. It's all good. It's fine. Absolutely fine. All right, over to you, Anne.
All right, I'm way behind now. So I think you guys all know you can go into label and set the minimum and maximum. And you'll see down here there's a field and it says automatic. So by default, it picks the most prominent measure on there, but you can actually change it. So notice what happens if I change it to order date. I can change where my min and max label are. It works for anything that you have on the detail shelf. Awesome. Okay. So the next one is you can quickly learn about a sheet by describing. So Control E on a Windows machine, this guy right here will give you a blueprint of your entire sheet. It'll have the marks, what's on each shelf. It'll give you the domain of your dimensions, and it will tell you about your data source. You can also copy this out and email it to your friend who wants to recreate your awesome work. My next tip is you can Control Tab to go through sheets. You can Control Tab to do forward, Control Shift Tab to go back, potentially, if I can get back here. Here we go. Now, kind of picking up on what Lorna said. So yes, you can right-click on Measure Values, and you can use separate legends. So let's say you can't get away from those pesky conditionally formatted text tables. I've got profit, sales, and profit ratio. I really only want to conditionally format profit ratio. So what I can do is I can trick it by coming in. I'll adjust these to be white on both sides. For those two measures that I don't want to show, I'll change the step color just to 2, so it'll be white to white. I'll do that on both of those, and then you'll see at the very end here, I will have appeased my boss, and I will only have one conditional formatted measure. So now we can actually see what our data is telling us. Hold, please. Bam. Okay. So the next one is if you have a bunch of fields on label and you haven't changed your default label, you can go over to the marks card and you can change the order of your fields on your label. So by just quickly dragging, so you can quickly change the order. I can do that wrong. I can quickly change
-1.
the order of fields on labels just by simply dragging them and moving them. Okay. Next one is, did you know that you can quickly replace all field references with a single click? So if I right-click on this one, I go to Replace References. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to go to my replacement. Boom. It will quickly replace whatever it is. So cheer if you want us to be Andy and Jeff. Woo! The other thing is that this also works inside of calculations. So I'm zooming in with my mouse wheel to make this larger, but I've got my original field in here on function. I know it's a Lorna tip, yeah. So if I go back, I'm going to drop this on here to replace it this way, and then I'm going to re-replace it, and then we'll see what happens. You'll see that my snarky comment will show back up, and this time it'll be in all uppercase. Yay! Okay. So quick KPI formatting. So when you look at this, you can see these up and down arrows for the different deltas. You can go in and make a calculated field. You can figure out what that delta is. If it's negative, you want it to be down. If it's positive, you want it to be up. I'm way too lazy for that. So what I do instead is I actually go in, and if I change the default properties and the number format for that delta, all I did was added a little character to the front and end. No extra calculations needed. All right, back to you, Lorna.
Okay, so let's say you don't have a lot of space of your dashboard. If I click a little bar, it'll then bring up a new sheet, but it'll also minimize this. But if you've noticed, if I go down here, it's keeping the context in as to where that maximum is. So first thing, how do we do that? So it's a level of detail calculation, which looks at the maximum sales over the subcategories. So again, what we want to do is the subcategory, sum of sales for all of those, so it's giving me sum of sales for every subcategory, and then I want just the maximum of that, so it's going to fix it over that. So then when I hover over this reference line, you'll be able to see that you can see that it's phones, which is the largest. So that's your level of detail to keep it in control. So the way that you want to be able to create the action, if you go to Dashboard and Dashboard Actions, you'll see that there's 2 actions here. So the first one is just a general action filter. So you go from the bar to the spark line and make sure you exclude it, so then it hides. And you use layout containers to do that. And the next one is filtering the sheet to itself. So for example, on the bar, we can go to the target sheet and change it to the bar sheet, which then allows it to filter to itself, so it allows it to reduce to that minimum value, and make sure it's on subcategory just to make sure that all the fields are selected. Okay, custom shape filters. Now, everyone loves shapes. I love shapes. So if we change the marks card to shapes, and we drag name onto shape, you can see that I've got friends all there, so you can add, that's a point, they laugh. So you can add this to your custom shapes repository, so again in that My Tableau repository place, but you can also use these as, filters, so as you can see, when I hover over, things change and highlights, you can use shapes as a highlight, and you can also use them as a filter. So again, with this, all you have to do is go to Dashboard, Dashboard Actions, and then you can highlight, so if you add an action, go to highlight, and again, it's just the same sort of setup. So you go from your page to the page that you want to highlight. But if you notice at the top, I've got little page turners. This will probably be redundant when buttons come out, but just for now, you can add shapes into your My Tableau repository, and it'll go from dashboard to dashboard. And again, all you have to do here is to go from Dashboard, Dashboard Actions, And when you go into it, you're just changing your target sheet to wherever you want to go. I just make sure that selected fields and there's non-selected so it doesn't affect any of your filters in the dashboard. Let's see what's next. Shapes as headers. This was great by Sarah Bartlett. So what I'm going to do here is the average of 10 minus 10,000, which will then do this, but it's what we want to do here is a dual axis chart. And we want this to be on shape and take name off there. But we want name on shape. So again, when we have our name, the shapes in there, we can add them as headers. And if we synchronize the axis, it will then, I've done too many zeros. It will then make it look a little bit neater when you're coming to do that in your dashboards. Over to you, Anne.
All right, this is all about weird charts. So the first one I'm going to show you how to make is a thermometer chart. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new sheet here. So this is super easy to do. I'm going to bring back on subcategory. Going to go ahead and put it on my columns. Let's bring back out my trusty sales. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a dummy calculation. It's going to be the minimum of, we'll just call it 1.0, I think. Actually, I think I did 0. And that will give me a dual axis. I'm going to go ahead and dual axis. I'm going to synchronize it. It's going to get ugly before it gets pretty. All I need to do is click back up here. I'm going to change my mark type back to a bar. Let's take this off of color. Let's do the same thing here. Now when I go in and I adjust the size of my bar, I start to get that nice, cute little thermometer. All right. Next one is, sometimes people like to use a funnel to kind of show a process of things and how things go down, but you can also build out a concentric circle chart as well. So again, I'm going to go ahead and make a new sheet and build that really quickly. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out my different measures. I'm going to go ahead and start dragging them on. Bear with me. I'm going to control or shift so I can drop multiple on here, right? Thank you. That's a tip. I'm going to go ahead and find measure names, and I'm going to drag that onto color. I'm going to take my measure values and put it on size. I'll change this to circle, and this guy needs to go away. So you get this gnarly bubble chart. All you need to do is go to Analysis, Stack Marks, turn them off. I'll make this larger for you guys to see here. And then the last step is you can rearrange your measures by just simply dragging the order that they are on your color legend. So I can put 15, then 10, then 1. All right. Pretty awesome. Okay, next one is drag and drop data. So anytime you have Tableau open, you can go ahead and you can just drag your data in from anywhere, drop it, and it will immediately create a new data source. That's all you need to do, one drag. And let's see here. Okay, next one. Another cute chart I like to make all the time is a dot plot with a line. So dot plots are awesome. They're a really great alternative to bar charts. Sometimes you need that extra line to visually see where things are. So let me go ahead and show you how to make that one as well. So again, we'll bring out our fancy subcategory. Go ahead and drop that on rows. Let's bring on sales. Again, switch our mark type to a circle. Let me go ahead and make this the entire view. Again, another dummy calculation. We'll use the minimum of 1 this time because it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and make this a dual axis. This time, I will not synchronize them. Again, we're going to get ugly before we get pretty. Go ahead and change my minimum to a bar chart. Change the color here. And then all I need to do is adjust my axis here. I'm just going to go from 0 to 1 on my fixed range. And you'll notice it'll start to take up the entire view. I just need to make my bars really small. And then all I need to do as well is move them to the back. And then you have a nice fancy dot plot with a line. All right, Lorna, back to you.
So you might have noticed in my friend's dashboard that I used a sound wave chart. So this is when you're working with speech. I used index to make sure all of the scenes and all of the seasons and episodes were all lined up on top of each other. So if I just duplicate the sum and number of words, I press Command then on the Mac so you can duplicate. And if I double click on here and click minus, then we can reverse the actual number of words, so then we get a nice sound wave chart. And if we right click and show header, then we can hide that. Saving as a bookmark. So if you want to be able to help your colleagues and use this again, if I go to Window, Bookmark, you can create a new bookmark. So you can add this to your saved chart, so you can send it around. You can also add other people's bookmarks to your area, so that you can drag that into your My Tableau repository on there. So add other bookmarks. Oops, did that one. Index and rank. So there's different ways of doing this. So if we use index first, and I'm just going to change this into being discrete so you can see what I'm doing. If I click the edit table calculation, what I want to do is basically have a look at every season and every name, and I want to restart every season. So that's going to give me a rank based on the number of words or things that they're saying. You can also use rank to do this. So if I go rank some number of words, you can then make sure that you either do ascending or descending, depending on which one you want to do. And again, we need to change this to discrete. And then edit the table calculation so that it's by season and name and restarting every season. So it gives you the same thing. So if I also then drag rank from the top over to your measures, it will then let you save this as a calculated field so that you can use it again and again when you're going into your calculations. If I then just show you the difference in the ranks, so if we go into rank here, so there's different types of ranks. So if you have two numbers the same, you can either rank them unique or rank them the same. So first, second, third, and then it will carry on going like that. Let's carry on. Bump chart. So now what we can do is we can use that rank to create the bump chart that I did before. So here it looks a little bit gory. That's because we need to make sure that we continually change our table calc. So if I do this, so now we've got the rank of season over time. So then if I edit that axis, you can also reverse this so that you can have 1 at the top and 6 at the bottom. And again, we can also duplicate this so that we can have the name as a header. So if I go to shapes, because I love shapes, and then I add that to shape, you can then see that they're all across. If I use this calculated field, which is called last equals 0 or first equals 0, this allows you to capture the first or the last icon on here. So if I put that onto the detail, onto size, sorry, you can then see that all of them go smaller and larger, and all I want to do here is dual axis and synchronize. So then you have your images at first and last. Move discrete headers from the bottom to the top. So maybe you want them all at the top. So if you go to Analysis, Table, Layout, and Advanced, if you untick this little box down here, you'll be able to move them to the top rather than from the bottom. If you also love pesky tables, you can change this to a maximum of 16, which allows you to have 16 columns so that they don't concatenate up. Measure names is the header, so if I drag measure names to the top here, it's going to show no measure values, so you can edit this alias to be whatever you want. And then you can also create a new dummy field so that you can keep layering depending on your titles. Over to you, Anne.
All right, I'm going to show you how to make a bar and bar chart using measure names and measure values. So I've already showed you 2 ways to make a new sheet. I'm going to show you a third. So right-click, new worksheet, that easy. So I'm going to bring back on my sales. This time I'm also going to use profit, shockingly enough, okay? And then, of course, let's find our handy-dandy subcategory as well. Redo this so that it's a little bit easier for me. All right, drop this on here. That's how you get measure names and measure values to show. That is not how you get it to show. Come on, show me. There we go.
Okay, Anne.
Okay, I know. I'm wearing the sloth shirt today, so I'm kind of slow. All right, drop subcategory on here. I'm just going to move measure values onto my columns and move my subcategory down here. And you'll get something like this. If I put it on color, you'll notice that they're stacking. Again, not what I wanted. Another great opportunity to go to Analysis, Unstack Marks. And then to make it really cute, let's just drag measure names onto size as well, so then you get a nice bar and bar with measure names and measure values. Next one, I think you can kind of tell I really like to use that secondary dual axis as a dummy. So I'm going to show you how you can color the background of a line chart. So if you look at this, I've got the sum of sales by month, and then I've got a secondary axis. It's an area chart. I just have the minimum of 1, doing that same thing I showed you before, only fixing it to 1. I've built out a calculated field called above average, and all it's going to do, and I'll show you this, is it's going to look at the window average. So that average line that I have on there, that's the window average. And if my last data point is above it, it's going to be green, which means we're awesome. If not, it's going to turn red. So notice as I switch through my different filters, hopefully you'll see it goes from red to green. Really awesome. Okay. Yeah. So my next one is an easy information button. I'm sure you guys know you can bring on a custom shape with an eye. I'm, again, way too lazy to do that, so you can just do that directly in Tableau. So if I make a new sheet, all I'm going to do is a dummy ad hoc calculation, call it lowercase I. I'm just going to drag that onto label, change my mark type to circle. I'll make this a a bit larger for you as well, then all I need to do is go in, center my label both ways. Again, I'm kind of a snob, so I would change this to Georgia because I really like the way the italics look. So Georgia, italicize it, and you can put your brand color on there as well without ever having to deal with custom shapes. Okay, next one, 6 ways to make a calculated field. So go through this with me. The first one, the drop down next to dimensions, create a calculated field. 1. The next one, then you can also right click on the white space, create a calculated field. You can also click on a field and you can create a calculated field from that. It'll drop it in there. We keep on going. You can go to analysis, create calculated field, and make a calculated field. The hotkey for that, Alt-A-C, gets you to the same place, a calculated field. And then we've already shown you ad hoc calculations, so you can always do that in here. And then throughout this process, I found there's actually a 7th way to create a calculated field. So if you go to this little drop down on rows or columns, you can go in here, new calculation, new ad hoc calculation. All right, back to you, Lorna.
Okay, now to create a calendar. So if we option drag on a Mac, because we're on Macs, you get this little nice date fields. So discrete and continuous, depending on which one you want to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is drag weekday on. Again, option drag order date to rows, and we're going to go for week. And if I drag order date to filters, I'm going to tick this, going to go to month year and find the latest date, but Tableau is awesome, so we can do that anyway. So we can just tick this little box at the bottom and it'll filter to the latest date. Then also what we want to do is option drag order date onto text and click day. And then we have a nice little calendar built here. Oh, not that. Entire view. And what we can do here is we can add sales onto color, which is then going to change the color of the text, but we can change it back to shape so you can see where your biggest sales or profit or whatever was. Next one, what we can do here is if we create a new calculated field and we wanted to use weekday at any given point, if we drag it from the top.
We're at 76 tips and we have 30 minutes left. We're crushing it.
We can drag it from the top to the bottom and it'll automatically build that calculation for you, which is great if you don't fully understand the date parts, date chunks, and different things, so it depends on what you want to do. You can save that. Gantt chart without reformatting, so I want to know the difference between my order date and ship date. So what we can do is we can create a calculated field, which is just date diff, and we've got the date diff of day between order date and ship date. And if I add that to size, it'll then automatically give me a switch between my mouse and my trackpad. And then we can have a Gantt chart there, so we can look at the date difference between order date and ship date. That was a tip they clapped. Adding and removing trend lines. So if we go into analytics, you can add an average line in. So I'm going to explain the 3 different ones. So if you drag it onto table, it's going to go across all of my seasons and all of my episodes. If I drag an average line onto the pane, it's going to go per season rather than over the whole table. And again, if I drag the average line onto cell, it's going to give me the average over each person, over each episode, regardless of the person. I can also just pick these reference lines up and drag them off so that you can just remove them quite easily. You can also format them in any given way, so it depends on what you want to do. You can either have thick lines, thin lines, you can remove your computation, etc. Drop lines. So if you have a little scatter plot like this, if you click on a mark and you go right-click, drop lines and show drop lines, what that's going to do is it's going to give you those drop lines to both axes. You can also edit these, so if you go edit, drop lines, you can change the X and Y axis, so it depends on which one you want to do. You can also add your labels on, so it'll tell you the values of those particular drop lines. Step lines, which is a great feature. If you have a line chart, you can automatically just change it to step lines or jump lines, depending on which one you want to do. And finally, all in a parameter. So when we use parameters, there's certain use cases that we want to be able to have all in our parameter and still flick between each of the individual subcategories. If I look at my calculated field, all I'm going to do is make sure the subcategory equals the subcategory parameter, or it equals all, and then it will just filter. It won't filter anything, and it will just bring back the values. So then if I click edit filter, you can see that I'm just setting that to true, and it will automatically pick it up. Over to you, Anne.
All right, so I know you guys all run in this scenario. So if you have Tableau Public or a Tableau server and you want to ensure you're editing the latest version of your published workbook, if you go to Server Open Workbook, you'll get a nice handy list of all your workbooks by their modified date. And you can go in and actually open the workbook from there and start editing instead of finding that gnarly copy that you have on your shared drive. Okay, Next one is how to quickly format on a dashboard. So if you have a layout container and you click on an object, you can double click here and you can get the grabber bar for the layout container, much easier than trying to find it any other way. I also like to add on borders to my layout container. So notice I have that little logo to the side. I'm going to go ahead and wrap that in there to just make it quite a bit cuter here. Okay, my next tip, yeah, that's a tip, come on, is I always format all my tooltips from the dashboard. Do it at the very end. So if you go to Worksheet, tooltip right here, you'll be able to adjust that right there. To clean things up, you can do two things. So notice when I click on California that this is underlined. That will happen anytime you have dimensions in your tooltips. You can have those be selected, but you can also turn those off. If you go back in and you go to Worksheet and you go to your tooltip, if you turn off the add selection by category, that will remove that option. The other one is, notice when I click here, I also have this keep and exclude. This gets people really confused sometimes. I've had emails where like, I just see Montana. So if you want to turn that off as well, you can go ahead and untick the include command buttons. Now they're not going to get themselves into any trouble. Okay. My next one is customizing Vision Tooltips. So we all love Vision Tooltips. If you notice my map, I'm showing the sales for 2018 by each state. And in my tooltip, I've got a running sum of the sales by month. This is great. I'm seeing my most recent year, but it would really be nice if I could see this in context. So what I can do is I can go into my tooltip and I can adjust what filter I'm using. Right now it's set to all fields. If I change it to state, then it's only going to filter on the state. And notice now I have my other years in context to see how performance is going. So Texas, not a great year. My next one is a negative and positive axis for an area chart. So this is really easy to make. Again, I have a dual axis here. So if I look at my different calculations, so I have one that's called negative profit. It's simply saying if profit's less than 0, I want profit, otherwise it's null. And then the same thing for positive. No magic there. You just drag them both on, and then you go ahead and you don't even need to synchronize them. So what happens though is you'll notice that they don't always stay in sync for their axis. So what you can do is actually make a calculated field. I typically call it top line. It's going to look for the maximum of my positive, right? So this mark right here, and the minimum, the absolute maximum of my lowest one here. It's going to determine which one it is, so then I can add that as a reference line. So if I drag this onto detail, I right click here, I'm going to add a reference line for that top line. Right here, I will just turn off anything that makes it look like it's even on the view. I can do the same thing on my bottom one here. And notice I've already done it. I just make it a negative instead so that it's always at the bottom. And now when I drag on any filter, notice that as I adjust the view, as I adjust the view, I guess I'm on furniture right here. As I show the filter and I switch to different things, that my axes will always stay in sync with one another. All right, Lorna, back to you.
Okay, so this next section is all about tooltips. So when I hover over, you can see that I've got that average 10,005. We don't want that, so if we click the little drop down up here, you can untick including tooltip. So that's just a little bit of an extra formatting for you. You can also hide your marks card. So if you hide the card, when you drag it into a dashboard, it's not automatically going to be there when you drag it on. Next, we have a section on Viz in Tooltips. Now, who loves Viz in Tooltips? What's a tip? They cheered. No? Okay. Right, so what I want to do is when I hover over this, I want to see the subcategories in those. So I've created a little sheet here to show me the subcategories. So when I go back into my tooltip, I'm just going to copy and paste something that's already pre-made. Sorry. Go into tooltip. And then down here, I'm just going to paste this. So you can change the height and the width of your tooltip depending on what you want to do. So I changed the width to 600. So when I hover over, you can see that each subcategory is there. So I've got a little bit more information. My next section is I want to be able to see the top 10 states by sales and by profit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them side by side. So now when I go in and I paste these in, I'm just going to change this sheet to be number 3. And change the width back to 300. And instead of doing a new line, I'm just going to paste it next to it and change that to 4 and change it back to 300. So now when I click OK, when you hover over, you can see that they're side by side rather than on top of each other. So now what I also want to do there is I want to be able to break up between the top section and the bottom section. So what I'm going to do here is going to create a new sheet with some formatted lines on there. So when we go into the tooltip, and I have a space in here, I'm just going to keep the width as 600 and change the maximum height to 9. And then when I click OK, you'll be able to see that there's a black, oh no, where's it gone? Oh, change the sheet, yes, thank you. Woo, change it to number 5. And then you can see that there's a black line there. You can also, before you had to be able to use it in a dashboard, and then you could hide sheets, but now you can right-click and hide all sheets, and it'll hide everything to do with your vision tooltip on that specific sheet. Over to you, Anne.
All right, I want to introduce you to my second BFF, because she's obviously my first, the worksheet summary card. So if you right-click, you can go to summary and see this fancy-dancy worksheet summary card, which is great for, this is a tip, guys, come on, which is great for data profiling. So when I select marks, notice what happens. I can see what the % of total is for my count for each of those different measures. You can also go in and you can customize this. You can add on more statistical components if you want, and again, you can copy this out and email it to someone if you really want to. The next thing you can do, I kind of showed this before, but you can sort things by on the color legend. So notice as I bring furniture up to the top, it's going to be in front, and my office supplies are going to go to the back. You can also alias from the color legend. So if you're way too lazy to go over the left side, you can just go to your color legend, edit the alias, and change it here. Woo! Yeah! All right. So I know a lot of you have dropped in on some workbooks, and they look like this, and you're like, what happened? So if you really want to quickly reset your cards, all you need to do is right-click, reset cards. Okay, let's say you have this. You want to quickly fix underlying Excel data quickly. If you go to your data source and you edit it, you come in here. I'm just going to edit my connection. I'm going to go ahead and right-click it and open it. This is going to open Excel, which is kind of sad, but we'll do it anyway. We're already at 100. Let's go ahead and add on that 7th one, which we said was the drop down by rows. I'll go ahead and save it. Not going to do anything else, just going to go ahead and close. I'm going to go back, and this is a tip. You can change the way this looks. So I'm going to change, let me go back to a sheet here. Click on this guy right here so I can see all of my different ones. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to refresh my data, and let's pray. We've got our 7th one on there. Okay. So now, moving on. Actually, it's back to you, Lorna.
Okay, so I'm going to show you how to use a highlight logo. So if I add in the average of 0, it then stacks them on top of each other, but that's fine. So I just want to unshow the header. So if I go into my dashboard, you can see that it's stacked on top of each other. But if I use the highlight and go to Monica, you can then see that that is then, it brings up that image instead of everyone else. So now what we're going to go through is padding versus blanks versus all sorts of different things. So if I add a border onto this sheet, just so you can see what it's doing, so I've added a border into the layout. So now if I do outer padding, what it's going to do is it's going to do everything outside of that border. And you can change the height and width of the different sides. You can untick it, so then you've got different heights and widths from either side. You can also do inner padding, so that's going to do everything inside of that border. So again, if I do 40, it's going to bring it inside of that border, so you can know the difference between the two. I also like to use blanks, but I'm probably going to stop using them soon so that I can start using padding. So again, you can just drag that on just to give your dashboard a little bit of white space. So now, again, I've already mentioned shift and tile for dragging. Your parameters and your filters, they're all now, and color legends. If I shift drag it on top of here, you can see that they're transparent so that you can see them on top, so you can highlight them a little bit better. You can also use your arrow keys to move it slightly, so if you're pixel perfect, you can move it around. And if we go to dashboard, show grid, you can also have I don't know if you can see that, yeah. You can see that, so you can have a grid in the background. And if we go onto layout, if I float some more things onto here, so if I drag this one on, you can change the way that the layout is working. So if I just move these around, you can see that my legend comes on top rather than going from underneath, so it depends on which order that you do them in. We have a dashboard here. We want to take it out of this workbook and into a new workbook. So if I right-click and copy, and if I go to a brand new workbook and then go right-click and paste, it's going to bring everything over, including the data sources, all the formatting, and it's going to label all your sheets right there. Finally, Tableau Public. So when you're publishing a viz to Tableau Public, do it in public, obviously. If you add and colon show viz home equals no, you then get, so this is what it looks like on Tableau Public, and then when we do the and show viz home, you get rid of that outside thing, so it's good for embedding things, and it also makes it more mobile for you. But if there's no other parameters at the beginning, make sure you use a question mark instead of an and. Over to you.
All right, so I know you guys have all run into this situation where you have this highlighting. So notice when I click on the year, I've got that yellow highlighting across the top, and I've got it this way as well. You can actually turn that off using this little button up here. I can disable all sheet highlighting. Now when I click, I'm not seeing that yellow that doesn't match my viz. You can also customize how it's set up, so you can enable it, and you can decide which one you want. So if I only want the year highlighted, it'll only happen this way, but notice it won't happen when I do it the other way. Okay. My next one is if you have a text table, please don't have a text table. If you use control and then your arrows up and down will make your rows taller, and left and right will make them wider and skinnier. So Lorna stole this one from me, but I'm going to show you anyway because mine are pretty cute. So you can go ahead and add drop lines. Again, you can right-click, drop lines, add them. You can edit them. So one thing I'll show you she didn't mention is how to make these really pretty ones, which is if you go to Format, it's under Lines, right here on the left to change the way your drop lines look. Okay, so I think we all know you can go to Worksheet, export, crosstab to Excel, which is kind of slow, but you can also do is you can export, you can copy your crosstab. So if you notice, I have made kind of a subset of my data that just has the number of distinct orders per each of my customers. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to right-click, and I'm actually going to do Control-V and paste that in. So I've just made a data source from a sheet, and now I can analyze this guy. That's a huge tip, guys. Come on. So Lorna showed you this one. You can label a single measure by doing an ad hoc calculation at the top here. But what you can also do is you can use measure names as well. So if you bring on measure names across the top, it's going to look kind of silly for a little bit. I'm going to drop on measure values. This is going to happen. But all you need to do is if you go in, you edit the filter, I'm going to unselect everything. And if I select sales, you'll now have it on the top. My next tip, you can swap fields anywhere. So I'm control-clicking and selecting two of these things. If I right-click, I can swap any field that I want. That works no matter what, so I can swap these as well instead of duplicating them. So I'll do that for you. I can swap it this way. And you can also do this, which I did not know before this, is you can go to Analysis, and you can cycle fields. And Tableau will start cycling through the different fields in your data set and start making vizzes for you. Okay, so if you are using discrete date parts instead of continuous ones, you'll notice here I've got my data by quarter, and you'll see that there's some missing data. So I'm going from 2015 Q1 to 2016 Q2, not really an accurate picture of my data. So all I need to do is right-click on this field, show missing values, and I can see that missing time and get a better picture. All right, back to you, Lorna.
I'm out of tips.
Oh, okay, then back to me, Anne. Okay, we'll keep going. So quickly assign multiple palettes. So let's say you have a dimension on color, and you want to use two different sets of palettes. So if I go in here and I select, let's select tables, chairs, wherever that guy is, bookcases, and furnishings. I switch my palette. Let's use the Jewel Bright. If I assign those, it's only going to assign to those. Then I can go in and select everything else that is remaining, so I can set my winter ones, and now you can use different color palettes and assign them multiply at the same time. Okay, you can also have multiple dimensions on color. So right now I have only my region on color. Maybe I want the subcategory on color as well. If I were to simply drag that on, let's drag it on as a copy, you'll notice that it will replace region. So instead what I want to do is I want to drag that onto detail first, and then I'm going to change it to color. Now I have two different dimensions on a color legend. Order matters on this one. If you change the order of them on the marks card, that will change the order of them on that color legend. So put them in the order that you want. Okay, my next tip, and I'm running out as well, but I've got more we can use, is how to union spatial data. So I found some data that has grocery store information in New Orleans, and then I found a separate spatial file that had gas stations. I would really love for them to be together. Right now I can't union spatial files together, but what I can do is make an extract of both of them, which I've already done, thankfully. And if I go back to my grocery stores, I right-click, I edit the extract, and I append a data from file. Let me go find this guy since we've got the time. Potentially. And I will add on my gas stations. Notice what happens. I'll get this 94 rows were successfully added, and now I've unioned my spatial data. Okay, next tip is showing and hiding a reference line. So I have a dashboard right here, and I've got a reference line. I want my users to be able to decide if there's a reference line or not. So notice when I click no, there's no reference line, and yes, there is one. This is working through a simple, yeah, that's a tip in and of itself, right? Thanks. If I build a parameter, it's a simple Boolean parameter. If I go in, you can see I've aliased that, so the true is now yes, the false is no, and then all I need to do is make an easy calculated field. It's just called reference line. It's a replication, and let me make this bigger for you, a replication of what I have here, my measure. So all it is if this is true, then show my measure, so then it'll come on as reference line. Otherwise, it's null. And then when I go back to my dashboard, that gives my users the flexibility to add it or remove it. Okay, still have a lot of time, so I'm going to go to my backup tips, and let's see what I can show you from there. So this one, yes, this one I gave away yesterday. So if you were at the user group tip battle, I apologize. I'm going to show it again, this time a little bit slower. So I have a data set showing the number of businesses in the United States by county. Right now, that's all that I have on color. I get a little bit of information, right? We can see LA, we can see Cook County, and Miami-Dade. First step to make this data look better, normalize, normalize, normalize. I have that census data, so I'm just going to drop that on. Now you're going to get a truer picture of your data, so tip 1, normalize. You'll notice it's still kind of hard to see things. Everything's in that green section, so what I really want to do is be able to see the minimums and the maximums. I'm not getting that now, so all I need to do is change my calculation to a percentile, and then I need to set my color legend to different steps. When I do this, I am now creating quantiles. So if I have 4, that is a quartile. I could go any number, but if I went to 10, that would be a decile. Now it's really easy to start seeing the dramatic differences across the United States in terms of businesses per capita. And because I don't like static things and people can't actually come in and change this, what we can do is actually make that dynamic. So my last step here is I'm going to make a parameter, simple parameter, integer going from 4 to 10, and then I'll make a calculated field, which I'm calling quantile color. I'll zoom in so you can see this bad boy. It's just bucketing them into the different, it's bucketing those percentiles into different things. Now, once I drag that onto color and I right click and I show my parameter control, my end user can go in and can adjust the quantiles to suit their needs.
That us?
That's all the tips I got. So
Top. I'm all out.
I won? Did I win?
You won.
Woo, woo.
Well done, Anne.
Yeah.
You won.
Give me a hug. So I guess with our remaining time, I guess we have time for questions?
Yeah.
Anybody need some tips? We got plenty.
Yeah, does anybody have?
Go back to tip 16.
Go to the first screen. Oh, the links. Tableau public.
Got it. Hold, please. They're not published yet. We'll do that after this.
We have a question?
Hi. I'm wondering if you have a workaround for losing interactivity during sheet swapping. It appears that the containers go on top of each other, and so the subsequent sheets don't have any more interactivity. I'm not sure.
Sheet swapping.
Yeah. Oh, where it drops down. Yeah. So so you need to use layout containers for that, and make sure you remove the title of it. So you put them on top of each other, and then use the action filter and make sure you exclude all values when you unclick off it. So then it'll minimize that sheet for you. Cool.
What new feature are you most excited about that we saw yesterday morning?
The data modeling. For getting rid of LODs to some extent, making people smarter about how data is architected. I think that's going to be huge. What about you?
Set actions. That's
Yeah,
super powerful.
that's a good
so
one.
I can't wait to. And
Yeah.
definitely go and see Bethany Lyons' session. She just like blows your brain. So yeah, it's cool.
Go ahead.
I have a question about a relative date filter. You know how we can select next 2 years, previous 2 years. Is there a way without doing a custom date filter to do previous 2 quarters, for example, and next 2 quarters?
I would use parameters. So if you want
LOD.
LOD. All right, you heard it from the Hall of Famer. LOD.
Somebody turn his mic off.
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways. So LOD, I like to use parameters when people have custom look back periods. So I've seen it when it's like, we want to look at 13 weeks and then maybe we want to look at 26 weeks. I would use parameters and set different conditions to be able to get that desired outcome. Yeah, keep on, yeah. Andy, come back up. These are more tips.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Ladies.